So welcome everybody here to the Martin Segal Theater Center. My name is Frank Hentschker. I'm the executive director of the Segal Center. So great to have you all here. So fantastic faces, Jim and Mia and so many others, friends, Bonnie, over the years. But we are all here together to think about Morgan, who we of course knew so well. She was a good friend of the center, participated in so many events, was part of our family, and now I hand over the evening to Melissa, who is a student here, a PhD program in theater, helped to create this evening, and also she will tell a little bit more about Morgan and the work. If you have a cell phone, take it out. I'll do the same. Check it. It should say silent, at least on mine. It's the red color, and to honor Morgan, so would be great. So thank you all very much. Emergency, yeah. There are the exits. If something happens, yes. She will show you. Yoshiko will make the gestures, and Melissa.
They sold it on a cross, they sold it on a curve, and now it feels so cheap, not deeper. They sold it as a little light bulb, they sold it as a sticker, and when that feels cheaper, well, it doesn't feel much deeper. There was an ancient light, there was an ancient song. Now something isn't right. Now we live in fluorescent light. They sold it as a muffin, they sold it on TV, they sold it as a tabloid just to try to get the best of me. They caught us in the bleakness, they caught us on our screens. Brilliant minds go to college just to study marketing. There was an ancient light, there was an ancient song. Something isn't right. Now we live in fluorescent lighting. Most of all our lives under the same line. In schools and prisons and dying. Yeah, it's all in fluorescent light. They sold it as an olive, they sold it as a bomb, they sold it as self-protection while the innocent children run. Grown men wanna profit with their fingers on their triggers, but when life feels cheaper, then the dead have to dig deeper. There was an ancient light, there was an ancient song. Now something isn't right. It's the time of fluorescent light. Hey, how'd it get so bright? I turn off my phone.
August 7th, 6:30 a.m. Text from Morgan Jenness. There we go. To Yoshiko Chuma. Perhaps theater is about words and images and kinetics of time, space, and body, of deep thoughts, releasing laughter, and the music which connects it all, wanting to dance together. Dramaturgy is perhaps about listening to longings. Originally founded in 1979 as the Center for Advanced Studies in Theater Arts, this space was renamed in March of 1999 to recognize Martin E. Segal. This building used to be a department store with a restaurant themed around southern plantations at the top. The New York Times called Mr. Segal New York's leading cultural power broker. The center is currently run by Dr. Frank Hentschker, who received the French Legion of Honor for his work during the pandemic and a vibrant series of interviews with theater artists and scholars from around the world. Morgan Jenness was featured in this program. My Dinner with Morgan at Remedy Diner has performed across New York 43 times in various iterations as conversations in diners, homes, dances in galleries, gardens, and theaters at the UN, each with their own concept. Nothing is connected. This is a piece of, this Zoom is the headquarters of the brain of the School of Hard Knocks in this moment. Also, building trust and confidence, 9 a.m. Wednesday, July 24th, sealed Zoom meeting. How to enter Yoshiko's Zoom meeting. Meeting ID 261-704-8634. Password, 5TH, capital Q, R, capital U. Yoshiko went to a party with tables full of chocolate. She ate all the chocolate. Food is something you cannot bring back. Morgan. This is history. This is human history, bubbles of calm, but the world is mostly violent. Now what are we going to do about it? How do we work with the tides of history? Sometimes the greatest triumph is not being swept away. It is about holding ground. It is the first snow of the season. We are not in a war zone. Morgan wanted to sing. She was not going to be a dramaturg. She was going to be an actor. In 1917, Walter Camp created the Daily Dozen after observing that this aggressive bodybuilding was not sustainable or helpful in supporting the health of the typical office man. He was interested in sustaining an older body as one that was still relevant and useful to society, particularly if the US was going into war. October 28, 2021, text from Yoshiko. Hey, dear Morgan, the dinner is at my house. Please find the door of the storefront. Don't go to the regular entrance of the building. October 21st, 2021 at 10:53 a.m. Hey, dear Morgan, I left the voice message. Please listen and reply me. Love, Morgan. Hi. My voice message was all garbled, but Nikki said you want to invite me to his birthday dinner you are having. I would be honored and delighted. XOXOXO. Yoshiko, if you would like to bring some appetizer, might be great, but no pressure. Don't bring any flowers hot. The US military caught wind of Walter Camp's work and asked him to develop a sequence as a setting up series for the troops. Versions of this were then distributed to the masses via a radio program developed by Metropolitan Life Insurance to promote the nation's health and their company. This was the first popular home workout in the US. Yoshiko and Melissa Flower met waiting in line for rush tickets at the Worcester Group's performing garage. I told her about my research on Ragio Taiso, and she immediately started doing the gestures and singing the music. Dun, 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 dun. It's the first snow of the season. Yoshiko, next Thursday is coming up, November 14th, Zoom meeting at noon. 1 session or 2 sessions? Reply me. Timothy, I am good for double Zoom. Morgan, I cannot, alas, have terrible case of COVID. Timothy, take care, Morgan. Yoshiko, my dearest Morgan, quick recover, step by step, no rush. Do you need some help? Love. Yoshiko, to Timothy, I will invite some few, Christopher Sweet, Coco, and Melissa. We did great with one of them. See you in Zoom at noon on Thursday. Timothy, YC, thanks. We'll see you Thursday. August 14th, 2023 at 9:02. Text sent from Morgan to Yoshiko. Here's one way to describe the role of a dramaturg. You're in the driver's seat, and we're riding shotgun next to you. Maybe you know your destination and would like someone to help navigate. We can do that. Maybe you don't know where you're headed. We can describe what we're seeing out our window, what's exciting, surprising, intriguing, and might be worth a further look. in hopes of helping you to create a complete and worthwhile journey. Yoshiko, you don't know when I'm acting and when I'm not acting. If you are more nervous than me, I appreciate that. Sometimes you take care of me. I appreciate that. Don't perform.
I'm Jacob. Yoshiko asked me to talk for 4 minutes, and I think she suggested I talk about titles, some of the titles of the pieces that she did, and because I helped think about them. What's the purpose of a title? Maybe to give the audience a hint of what they're going to see, maybe to intrigue them a little bit, tease them. Sometimes when you're making a piece and you start with a title, it can give you an idea what to do. Sometimes a really good one can have absolutely nothing to do with the piece. The first movie Yoshiko and I made together was called The Girl Can't Help It. That came from the rock and roll movie with Jane Mansfield and Little Richard. It showed Yoshiko in locations in Maine, moving, not moving, dressed, sometimes not dressed. You might compare her in Maine with Jane in Hollywood. At one point we were thinking of calling it Corrosive. We had seen that on a railroad car, but that seemed a little too punk. We were invited with the composer Alvin Curran to the Venice Film Festival and made The School of Hard Knocks, which was, at that point, it was a combination of film, live music, and dance. The title was inspired by the jazz singer Pearl Bailey's album, titled The Songs of the Bad Old Days. But I'd heard that expression was around. I think it originated in the Depression, and I remembered it in Mad Magazine. It had the subtitle Adventure in Moving, which was written on the U-Haul truck that was in the film. Another one was A Night at the Millionaires Club, which came from an obscure article from around 1900 by Stephen Crane. It was kind of appropriate because the show happened at the fabulous Pyramid Club. Some other titles, Five-Car Pileup, a typical newspaper headline. In that show, they were carrying around newspapers, yeah. And the New York Post, it was the New York Post, and one of the issues had one of the great, most famous headlines of all time, Headless Man in Topless Bar. Then there was The Big Picture, that had sets by Yvonne Jacquet, who made big pictures. A Page Out of Order comes from the movie A Page of Madness by Kinugasa, a Japanese experimental film from 1926. And there was I Left Her Behind for You, which comes from a calypso song. I kissed her lips, I kissed her hands, but I left her behind for you. And then there was Picadon, a video which was the sound of an atom bomb makes. A long time ago, I was reading the autobiography of Will Rogers, the cowboy philosopher from the early film days, and I found he had a list of titles that were used and weren't used, some that were used in films and some that weren't used. And my favorite, which I ended up using on a film of mine, was called They Lie But They Don't Mean It. And what does that mean? Are they telling the truth? Are they lying or whatever? I don't know. Anyhow, I lost the book a long time ago, but I just looked up Will Rogers and I found some other titles, which I'll just read to you. And you can use one if you want to. Ether and Me, or Just Relax. Ether was used for general anesthesia in those days. A Truthful Liar. They Had to See Paris. Gee Whiz, Genevieve. One Glorious Day. Tiptoes. Well, I don't know, that's sort of too much like a dance thing. The Traveling Salesman of Truth. Too Busy to Work. Okay, and the last one is Just Passing Through.
My name is Bonnie. I've traveled to over 54 countries since leaving my hometown of Detroit in 1972. Some of them don't exist anymore. Here's 1989. I'm in Estonia, the capital city Tallinn, part of the Soviet Union. I've been working on a dance project and I overstayed my visa by 1 day. You could only get 2 weeks at the time. Travel is heavily restricted. I'm in a large gray building, the port, and I'm saying goodbye to my friends, 2 children, their mother, my friend who's the sister of the mother. We're all crying because I'm leaving and they can't leave. They can't get an exit visa, and we all wonder, without saying out loud, will we ever see each other again? There's no decor, no windows, only a big red star on the wall. The Soviet guard wears a green uniform, is armed with a Kalashnikov. He's a stout man in his 50s, probably been at this border for years, and most likely he's not from around here. Border guards have the power to say yes or no, let you in or out, and stop you. I hand him my passport. He looks at it, looks at me, looks again at the passport. No, he says, niet. No visa, no visa, no. It's only 1 day expired and I'm leaving now. No, niet, no, you must get visa, go back, get visa. Now to extend the visa, I know takes several days. The visa office hours are erratic, unreliable. They only issue visas once a week. It was hard enough to get the 2 weeks I have, so no, I'm leaving now. Why do I need to extend my visa? I'm leaving. I'm going to Helsinki and I'm flying home. Raising my voice doesn't really help my case. He turns away, ignoring me. He calls the next traveler and I stand dumbfounded and a little scared, confused. I don't know what to do. I see my friends on the other side of the fence watching, and they wonder what the hell's going on, but they can't help. They can't do anything. I see the captain behind me, the captain of the boat, observing all the passengers as they go through, and I know this captain. I've taken this boat once before. You fly from New York to Helsinki, Finland. There's no direct flights to Estonia. Then you take a boat the next morning to Tallinn, 3 hours. The last trip, the captain allowed us to sleep on the boat overnight to avoid paying for a hotel. He gestures. Now I'm fuming, nearly crying. The captain puts his arm on my shoulder and walks me around. Calm down, he says, calm down. Now look, this soldier that you're talking to, he probably has this job for maybe another week. He knows this is the end of the Soviet Union. Everything is crumbling. He's losing his job and his security. If he has a few more days or even a week left, that's a lot. Speak to him politely. By now, all the passengers have boarded and everyone has left the port building. The cavernous room is empty except for me, the guard, the captain, and my friends still watching through the fence. The captain won't get on the boat till I do. He waits for everyone to board, just like going down with the ship. He will be last. I slowly walk over to the border guard. I'm sorry, I say. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm taking this boat to Helsinki. Here's my ticket. And here's my air ticket from Helsinki back home. My mother is waiting for me. Mother. His ears perk up. Mother. Mother Russia.
Yoshiko Chuma engages with people by saying, "What's your name? What do you do?" Has she done that to you? Ever? She's caught me off guard a number of times. Well, I'm ready today. My name is Sumi Nakazato. Yoshiko and I are the same age. I was born in Tokyo and came to live in Westchester at the age of 9. My roots were yanked out from underneath me, my life as I knew it, when my father brought my mother and me to New York for his work. As I was growing up, I remember the assassinations of JFK, Malcolm X. In fact, I happened to be waiting for a bus outside the Audubon Ballroom the night that he was killed, and Martin Luther King. As a high school student, I took part in anti-Vietnam rallies at Columbia University. Growing up token, identity became a big issue for me. Fortunately, I had a great art teacher my junior year in high school. Art gave me the creative outlet I desperately needed. In my mid-20s, I went to live in Japan and stayed for 10 years. That was when I came in contact with Japanese avant-garde art. That's how I met Hitoshi Nakazato, a Japanese contemporary artist living in New York who was having a show in Tokyo. I heard about Yoshiko Chuma for the first time in 1980 in Tokyo. After I came back to live in New York, I saw her unfinished symphony performance with the School of Hard Knocks at St. Mark's Church in 1987 when she entangled herself with the cello players. I said to Hitoshi, she's a genius. It was the most idiosyncratic and fabulous performance I'd ever seen. Since then, I've seen others. The performance in 2008 at Japan Society was over the top, incredible. I look like this and I speak like this. I was fortunate to learn English when I did. It was harder to retain my Japanese. I tell people language isn't genetic. So many people don't get it. You get it, right? I've worked as an interpreter and translator for many industries. I was always someone else's voice. I wanted my own voice. For the last 14 years, I've been making accessories, mostly necklaces. I wanted to create a visual language with its own grammar. I wanted to create necklaces that defy conventions. I combine beads that range from Neolithic times, antique trade beads, vintage bakelite, animal bones and hoofs, and resin to contemporary semi-precious stone beads. Looking back in history, glass-making technology began with the ancient cultures in Syria, Egypt, and Mesopotamia, the Greeks and Rome, then to Murano in Venice. Glass beads were used as currency. Hey, the story goes that the island of Manhattan was purchased from the Lenape for $24 in beads, right? In this respect, I think my expression has similarities with what Yoshiko does.
Contrast belongs to the mind, not to awareness. The mind creates contrast by categorizing, comparing, anticipating, judging, naming, narrating. These habits help the mind move through the world, and they are exactly what breaks experience into pieces. Awareness doesn't break anything. Awareness registers. It sees. The mind sorts. Awareness is. Awareness beyond contrast is awareness without interpretation. Not positive, not negative, not calm, not agitated. Just the open field in which everything appears. People call this, quote unquote, pure consciousness, but the phrase is heavier than the thing it tries to point to. What matters is not a special state, but the absence of division. In awareness beyond contrast, silence is not opposed to noise. The mind thinks silence must have an opposite. That is still duality. Deeper awareness doesn't oppose anything. It notices sound when sound is present. It notices its absence when it is not. No preference, no identity, just noticing. It simply is. The sense of I shifts. In contrast, the I says, I am this, not that. I want this, not that. I am this story, this role, this past. But beyond contrast, reference changes. I is no longer the personality. I is simply presence aware of itself. No definition, no narrative. It is a simple fact of being. Nothing is erased. Everything becomes transparent. Within contrast, life seems full of opposing pairs, noise and silence, success and failure, power and weakness, meaning and meaninglessness, past and future. Beyond contrast, these pairs are still visible, but no longer solid. They do not define you. They appear like shadows cast by something you no longer mistake for the source of light. The shift is not an achievement, it is a remembering. Awareness beyond contrast is not a technique, not a practice, not a teaching. It is the natural state before the mind divides the world. It is already present underneath everything, revealed in the moment when the habit of separation finally becomes quiet. I'm Jorge Clark.
I guess I'm, like a lot of us, not entirely sure how I got here. But I'll try to say why. At the event last night, Yoshiko, there was an event at La Mama last night, and Yoshiko, in the program, which was elaborate, Yoshiko named herself as the conceiver, director, and dramaturg of the performance, which to me was funny because it seemed to kind of fundamentally misunderstand what a dramaturg is. Which, of course, is the role or the position or the identity kind of associated with Morgan Jenness, especially in this context. So I didn't know Morgan, probably like a lot of people, but it feels peculiar to speak in their behalf. Though appropriate, because I guess the extent to which I understand dramaturgy, which I've served that role for a handful of people, but that person is fundamentally kind of outside of the project. To be separate, to be apart from it, and I'd say that's one piece of it, and the other piece is sort of to be the audience to the creator, the artist, and to be the one watching them. And to understand kind of their presence or their power in a room. The other thing that I find funny the role, especially in the United States, is that I think it's, it's a European thing. And I think the kind of fetish of the dramaturg is similar to our desire for like state funding and a real culture. Which I guess means that, in some way a dramaturg can be anything, because it doesn't really exist here. Which I think is why, the people who do it well can really make it their own, which obviously Morgan was able to do. I also don't believe that theater is about community. Feels like this is the time to say that. And I believe in product over process. But I do think a dramaturg imagines the project is finished always. And so when something is finished,
From April 11th to April 24th, 2024, the Mamas Great Jones Repertory Company had the honor of working with Morgan on a production of Medea. This was probably one of the last works that she was involved in as a dramaturg, I imagine. She was the quiet force in the room. By reading about the project, you might get a sense of what excited her. Medea is a borderless techne epic for live audiences in person and online, conceived by La Mama's Great Jones Repertory Company, Culture Hub, and Zishan Urgulu with Morgan Jenness as dramaturg. The epic tells the story of Medea, a refugee whose reality is shattered when she learns of her and her children's looming exile, investigating parallels between the myth and the current refugee crisis by collaging real stories, ancient tongues, and hackable audiovisual systems. A major part of the production is a reimagining of La Mama's Medea, which was originally composed by the late Elizabeth Swados, with direction by Andre Serban for the company's celebrated 1972 presentation. The work is experienced in 3 parts, and the stark, embodied performance is a counterpoint to the media landscape. I was lucky enough to play Medea. Here's a bit of our text. O patris hosoi katamin mnean echo. Midita toto chala saito mai kreon. Mian me nai tindiaso himeran. Kai simeranai frondidi feuxometha. Keinos declaio symphora ke chimenos.
In this moment, we were to have Richard Schechner speak, but he is 92 years old and he is living an amazing life right now.
I think one of the first times I met Morgan was with my roommate, Bill Hart, when they were both consecutively the literary managers of the Public Theater. Morgan Jenness and Bill Hart, literary managers and dramaturgs. What do I remember about Morgan? She was my sister. I have many sisters, including that one over there, the Japanese woman. Morgan wanted to sing, and she came to me once about a year and a half ago, and she said, "Nikki, you will help me sing, and I will do a cabaret on my birthday at Pangea Restaurant." That was never to be because Morgan untimely, I think untimely, passed away in 2 days ago, or a day or two ago, a year ago today, November 11th or 12th, 2024. But she sang to, she said, "We will do this," and I said, I decided to do it for her. And so I did so on her birthday, August 23rd, 2025, at Pangea Restaurant. This is one of the songs that I sang for her. I've been following rains and the winds that follow after, for one certain face and an unforgotten laughter. I've been following trails, I've been staring after ships, for a certain pair of eyes and a certain pair of lips. Yes, I've looked everywhere you can look without wings, and I've found a great variety of interesting things. But it never was you. It never was anywhere you. An occasional sunset reminded me, or a flower hanging high on a tulip tree, or one red star hung low in the west, or a heartbreak call from a meadowlark's nest made me think for a moment. Maybe it's true, I found you in the star, in the call, in the blue, but it never was you, Morgan. It never was anywhere you. Anywhere, anywhere you.
Insert text. 1. Munitions boom, war prosperity. 2. Unscripted docudrama, 3. Drama without a script, or drama without script, or drama with no script. 4. Hollowed community. 5. Don't ever miss it, because it is stated that this is going to be a real-life open house with a real-life open house with a slime-making gang, but I'm still thinking if it will be the title of the site because of the time adjustment. 6. What to do with countless art disposals? Art is being disposed of in large quantities, or art is being disposed of in large numbers, or art is being discarded in large quantities, or art is being disposed of en masse. It is a source of environmental pollution. Recommendation to eliminate discarded art. 7. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. That line hits hard. They focus and care tenderly about their present, not minding what tomorrow may bring. I think this is beautiful. To not care what tomorrow may bring. Just living life filled with joy. Sadly, not everyone can, because most people live below the poverty line. I remember this song very well when I was a little girl. I found the meaning of que sera, sera funny in English. What will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. 8. Humans are social animals after all, and cannot be alone. 9. If you graphically represent future dangers and present sacrifices, the diagonal line runs like this and is probably in the middle, and the line of sacrifice intersects in the middle. If you go to the left, the future danger will be greater, but keep fighting. If you go to the right, the current sacrifice will be greater, so stop here. Examples of things that are cited here as examples of moving towards a compromised peace that take the present sacrifices are the end of the Korean War and the Vietnam War. Then, in August of last year, the United States admitted to withdrawing from Afghanistan. That story flies, but at that time, the Russian newspaper seemed happy. 11. Secret base. 12. It is interesting to pass through the narrow alleys. 13. My creations have always been shunned, except for food and clothing. 14. Academic media operated with the aim of encouraging more people to learn, enjoy, and support humanities and social science studies. 15. Repetition with displacement, or repetition with misalignment. 16. The logic isn't broken, but it's in the form of a sentence that makes sense when read properly. Repetition with displacement. It is not just repetition. Sometimes it is told by a narrator, and sometimes it is told through the mouth of a character in the work. The same event is told from a slightly different perspective. The episode is told over and over again, but from different angles, so that parts of the episode that were not visible at the beginning of the manipulation gradually come to the surface. It is repeated while shifting the viewpoint a little. The repetition that accompanies this is not only small episodes within a single work, but in fact, the work itself can be said to repeat itself over and over again. The same episodes are repeated over and over again, shifting angles slightly, and the works are gradually connected. It is not just a single episode that repeats itself over and over in a single work, but it becomes clearer when it is repeated over and over again. The 495th work is shockwave delay, which is repeated over and over again already before, shifting the angle a little at a time. 17. Sartre's existentialism is a philosophical thought that the meaning of human life should be determined not within the self, but in relation to the living world. Or, Sartre's existentialism is a philosophical thought that believes that the meaning of life should be determined not in oneself, but in the relationship with the world in which one lives. 18. When art goes out of control, it is a shock. When art runs amok, it is a shock. It is shocking when art runs amok. The form of expression changes when you are alone. You become an emotionally fed being. 19. Reconciliation of the world, or world reconciliation. Is the creative work a process of reconciliation towards the world, or a counterattack challenge? 20. I existed, I exist, I will be. 21. I was told that if the United States agreed to this request, the matter would be kept confidential and handled without causing any trouble to the United States. The secret pact.
In his dreams, the iguana becomes me. I do not become the iguana. It is rather as if somewhere in a distant land, the iguana is dreaming and slips gently into me, becoming me. The iguana does not notice, nor when he wakes does he remember his dream, but I do. I'm sorry, I wasn't like this before Florida, all strung out. Before Florida, everything was steady. Like I said, like I breathe. Marco, just breathe. The thoughts are all just clouds, just little floaty clouds. Oh, mommy. Before the iguana filled me, before
I didn't know who Morgan Jenness was before a couple months ago. I never knew her personally. I barely knew what dramaturgy was. I'm a filmmaker, not a theater person. But performance and art and entertainment all intertwine in a way that doesn't make sense, that I think is my constant journey here. I didn't come here prepared to say anything. I just came here to think about Morgan and the fact I didn't know them. Because Morgan identified as non-binary, which resonates with me and my own gender expression, and to see people remembering her in ways that feel transcendent in a way, that as if this 44 chapters now series is communicating with Morgan right now, and we are all having dinner because they were worthy of that, and because any artist that is able to do something and touch people with their craft is worthy of dinner.
And I just wanted to leave you off with 2 1/3 of a sonnet. So 3 different ones. I'm encasing the world in mirrors, singing to myself, you are invited.
Morgan Jenness, American dramaturg, died 366 days ago. Edward Laguna, my father's father, died 367 days ago. Joseph Harani, my mother's father, died 414 days ago. So it goes. Jacob's stories, as told by Lee Harani, my grandmother. The following stories were told to me on a car trip from Elmer to Michigan to visit Ramiz and Ben and their families. Dermimas was the name of the village where the Harani clan was born and lived. It is located over the shoulder of the Litani Valley, where the Litani River runs in the south of Lebanon. The Harani clan is said to be the earliest to settle in Dermimas. They came from the district of Haran in southeast Syria. It is said that 3 brothers came and settled. They were Elias, Jabor, and Daher. Our family belonged to Jabor. He is the forefather of the family. Jabor had 3 children, Jacob, Nasif, and Hannah. Jacob had 4 children, Tamer, Abraham, Shamir, and Esther. Tamer was born in 1874 and died in 1939. He was our father. Father and I used to go to the field and water the olive trees carrying the water. We would go miles to Palestine to sell our grapes and figs and bring back wheat. Joseph Harani, my grandfather, was born in 1928. In 1946, when he graduated boarding school, Joseph went to Haifa seeking employment. He had been promised a job at the government hospital for 6.5 Palestinian pounds a month. Having traveled the whole day from the village to Haifa, he was interviewed by the personnel officer. He had no sleep since the inn he stayed at was full of fleas, and he had sat outside on his suitcase all night. The officer gave him dictation, and he could not think how to spell one word in English, so he did not get the job. He spent 3 days looking in the paper for another job still, and finally saw an ad for a clerk in the Sokani Vacuum Oil Company. He wore his graduation suit, took his diploma, still wrapped with the ribbon, and carried a newspaper under his arm. The man gave him a job as an office boy for 15 pounds when the British were ordered out of Palestine in 1948. Joseph escaped. When my grandfather was escaping Haifa during the Nakba of 1948, he gave up his seat on a bus to an old man. Once the old man was seated, an Israeli shot him and he died. In 1948, Joseph escaped with his bicycle on a tiny freighter ship from Haifa to Beirut. It almost capsized because it took 300 desperate people and was overloaded. Joseph went directly to Josephine, his younger sister, at the girls' school in Beirut. They had been praying for him during this crisis and were elated to see him. Or so the story goes.
That's an interesting question, how we got here. What I remember is that I met my uncle's German Mennonite farm with all the cousins, and it's time to bale the hay. Bale the hay, you put it into these rectangles, and you stack the rectangles, and they're from the floor all the way up into the rafters, and you can make tunnels, and you can make places to hide. And then it's dark, and you can play barn tag. Barn tag, you just don't want to get hit with the burlap bag, because then you're it. So I found a place to hide, and I hid, and I waited, and then the lights went out. It's pitch black. I run across the floor, and suddenly it's more than black. I can't breathe. It's because in the middle of the floor there was a hole where they throw the hay down to the sheep and the cows, and I fell, and there I am. I'm like laying there, and I catch my breath, and there's like no sound, no light, and I smell it. I can smell the cows. And okay, nothing's broken. How do I get out of here? I find my way, I go back to the house, everyone's sitting around, and it's prayer time, and my uncle is delivering the prayer, and everyone's waving to get rid of the flies from the food because it's a long prayer, but nobody noticed that I'm there. I fell through a hole, but now I'm here. And I remember Yoshiko said, okay, Zoom next week. I met Morgan on Zoom. I said, Morgan, how do you know me? And she says, well, I saw your performances in New York, but I wasn't supposed to know you because of some jealousies and some anger, and okay. But quickly became friends, and then Yoshiko said, Morgan's dead. But we'll keep going. So I think that's important to keep going. It's a scary time. I work in technology. I work with AI. And yes, AI is scary, but it's probably scary for not the reason we think it's scary. And I think about IBM that hired me. And IBM started because they had these little things, punch cards. And punch cards, it's just a piece of paper. And you feed them into a machine, and it can count from all these punch cards. And at the turn of the century, they used these punch cards for the census. And it was very fast, and everyone said, great, punch cards. And the business world just boomed because of punch cards. But then the Nazi regime said, well, we would like to count people as well. And we would like to use those punch cards, IBM. Can we use them? Yeah, sure. But no one realized why they wanted to count people. In addition to counting them, they were going to track their race, they were going to track their religion, they were going to track their political affiliation. They wanted to know where you are so they could put you on a train and put you somewhere else. So yeah, technology is scary. No one thought this little punch card was going to create such a problem. So yeah, AI is scary, but probably not for the reason we think it's scary. But we have to pay attention to it. Thank you.
Wait. Do you want me to speak the last time? No?
Thank you.
So again, thank you all for the contributions, and I think it is truly an innovative and a great way to think about Morgan and her mind and how it worked. Maybe we can have a little bit more light on the audience and also on everybody here. And thank you all for coming. Yeah. Yeah. Jason, can you put that on? Yeah, and
now we see everybody.
And we need to remember where we come from in order to know where we are and where we are going. So maybe we'll ask everybody, what did Morgan mean to you? Melissa, tell us a little bit. Stop.
So I first met Morgan at Double Edge Theater probably 7 years ago. And we always planned to get a coffee because I was also a dramaturg. And we planned it, and then we replanned it, and then we replanned it, and we never actually did it and then I met her again on Zoom through Yoshiko. And these were just conversations. We were doing Zoom conversations internationally once a week. And when you're doing that, it kind of fills your whole brain in a way that's, I don't know, it envelops you. And we're doing it, when you're doing it weekly especially, and we started doing it 2 days a week for a while. And then Morgan was supposed to perform. And then I guess because after she passed, because I was also a dramaturg and I was there, I ended up stepping into the performance at Nikki Land. And that's how I got here.
I only met Morgan one time. It was October 13th, 2024, at an event that I was invited to attend by Yoshiko. The event was centered around a woman named Nora Bakr, who is a part of the El Fanoun Palestinian dance troupe, and they were on tour in New York City. Morgan asked Nora, what can I do as an American to support the Palestinian people? And I ask myself that same question almost every day.
I met Morgan, I think it was in the 90s during puppetry festivals at the Public Theater, and then much more later on with Josh Fox when she was dramaturging his shows. And I got to ride in the car for a very long time from Pennsylvania to New York with Morgan, and conversations were extraordinary.
I never got to meet Morgan, but to me, Morgan, the idea of Morgan, a dramaturg to me dismantles this idea of a lone wolf that I feel like in playwriting there's kind of this romanticized idea of being a lone wolf playwright, and really so many plays that I've written are really a combination of a dramaturg's work and the writer's work. And I feel like through this process with Yoshiko, Morgan has dismantled, in a sense, I've been building a relationship with Morgan across the threshold of life and death, and this dismantling this concept of being alone in life and alone in death, when really there's a communication across that threshold, in the same sense that a dramaturg communicates with a writer to dismantle the notion of a writer being alone and creating work in a vacuum.
Excuse me, I met Morgan once. I think it was at the same show that you were talking about earlier, that Yoshiko introduced me, but it was more like, nice to meet you sort of thing. But I always heard how kind she was, and she would help, for example, our mutual friend Joel do walking exercises up and down the hallway with his walker, and then afterwards I always remember Morgan because we talk about the idea of being a dramaturg, and so that sort of permeates my whole idea.
As I had said earlier, I only met Morgan virtually, but having worked in technology and never having an office and just traveling the world with a laptop and meeting online and seeing people from around the world and working with people around the world, it was pretty normal. You get to know someone and you feel like you know them. So I started to get to know Morgan, and it was really interesting that we shared this time, this history together. So it was like seeing this person who had been in the shadows for me, because we had a lot of shared people, shared memories, shared experiences, and I worked at the Public Theater where she worked, and so I was working backstage, and we probably passed 100 times, but didn't connect until later virtually.
I didn't think I had ever met Morgan, but now that you talk about this dance troupe that you went to see, I was there too. So I guess I had been in the same space with her, which is sort of comforting, knowing that you're all gathered here to remember her and her power to bring people together for their creative process.
I've met Morgan only formally, that is through the several evenings of these my dinner with Morgan at the Remedy Diner. Now I'm actually beginning to believe that she existed, and that you know, it's strange to see a show about a dramaturg, and it does make it have a fictional feel to it. But I do actually believe I think I actually saw Morgan several times.
I'm afraid, to be honest, I never met Morgan. So I don't have more to say. Sorry.
Yes, all I can say is I saw Morgan was always, we were both out every single night, and if I happened to be at the same show that Morgan was at, I said, "Oh my God, I'm home now because Morgan's here," and whether it would be a play by Jose Rivera or Migdalia Cruz or Josh Fox or so many other people that we know them because Morgan was there. It's I feel like I feel bereft because every time I go to a show now, Morgan's not there, but in a way, she is.
I never met Morgan personally either, but when I first met Yoshiko, or a couple weeks after knowing her, I had a dream that Morgan was featured in. I haven't told anyone this, but she was there, they were there, and I didn't know what their voice sounded like, so they were talking but like silent. But Yoshiko was there, and we were in a restaurant.
Yeah, so thank you all for sharing, and I think as we always do in the Segal, we will go also right away to audience. It's a wonderful, great audience we have here. Morgan's work as a dramaturg and in theater was also about innovation. She was Taylor Mack and so many others, very early on, and supported artists. It was truly unique what she did, and she always had this twinkle in the eye. She would squinch them a little bit and say something nice and kind. She taught at Columbia. So what, as a prompt, what did you learn from Morgan? And what did she dream about?
I talked with Taylor Mack.
Mhm.
He is maybe on tour.
On tour.
He
Yeah.
really say, he's here.
He is not here.
I didn't give you any, I didn't ask any of the statement in a monkey.
Yeah. Yeah. So a statement or also a question to the audience, and we'll start with, I go around and we start with Josh.
So, thank you. 21 years ago, she called me into her office at Abrams Agency, and I was really excited because I was like, oh, I have an agent. I had no idea what I actually had. And at the end of the meeting, I was like, so what do I call you? Because I was too embarrassed to say, are you my agent now? And she said, I'm your Auntie M. So for a couple decades, I was Dorothy. There were a lot of storms. We worked together on every project. And, she was the dramaturg for Occupy, the movement. She saw me shooting my plays, and she said, "Hey, I see you up there with that camera. Do you want to make movies?" And I was like, I could never make movies. And she's like, "I think you could do it." So.
So
it's really hard to be without her. Yoshiko,
sorry,
don't
I
interrupt me,
interrupt.
please.
Actually,
Yoshiko,
people
hold on.
want to
Yoshiko,
talk.
please,
Yeah,
please, please, Yoshiko.
Yeah, yeah.
Just chill. Just chill, please. I just wanted to say, even a year, I can't believe it's been a year. I miss her every day. And there was so much support that came from this person for thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of audience members. And that is something that could never, ever be fully understood. And did anyone get into her apartment? Ever? All right, I want to know about it later.
Hank, I just want to say to October 13th, okay? And then, Mia, thank you to give you opportunity to have 3 hours. And that was the last time I saw her. And you saw first time, right? And then you saw first time October 13th. Sumi, you saw the October 13th, you came Palestine conversation. And that was the last time, Nikki. That was your birthday. Right? Yeah. That was the last time I saw her. And after that, kind of a Zoom. Yeah, but you won't say.
I worked with Morgan for 14 years straight, from 2010 to 2024. Also with this woman, Claire. I think that is that how we met? That's how we met? Through Morgan. And I met her originally when she was at the Public, and she brought me in to do a show. What we learned from her is this unbelievable web, and this might make sense to people that worked with her on lots of plays that you may have overwritten. And she would constantly say, "Remember, it's like that game where you take a little stick away, and if the whole thing falls down, then you got to put it back. But if you keep taking things away and it doesn't fall down, you didn't need it." And I loved that about Morgan. And I also just wanted to share with all of you that I had a dream a couple of nights ago, because Claire was participating in this piece I'm doing now that Morgan was looking at, and we're name checking her in it, which is just really personal. I don't know that it's necessary. She'd probably say, "Cut that out." But I had a dream that she was alive and she came to some event, could have been like this, and started telling people what she thought about what was going on. And I was telling people, "No, Morgan just showed up." And people kept looking at me like, "You're nuts. Don't you remember? She died a year ago." And I said, no, she's right here. Here she is.
Claire, you want to say something? Sure. Hello? Okay. So I've known Morgan 14 years, I think, and I met her in the street, and Morgan was a consummate activist puppeteer. She was always in the puppet studio, always on the street. And I think one of the first Zooms she had about this project was, because I heard all the drama about your history,
And she told me that before the Zoom, and I was eavesdropping on this Zoom because I was driving her up to the Adirondacks, and the Zoom was happening. She was in the car. Yeah.
She said, right, Timothy, always she's going to that, where you going?
Yeah.
And she going to that way, this way.
Yeah.
She had her hat. She had her hat.
She was in the
and
car.
I said, where are you going?
We were, yeah.
I said, where are you going?
We were on the Northway, going up 87.
So you were
yeah.
driving that?
I was driving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She was driving.
I was driving. Yeah. And I met Yoshiko through Morgan at a production at Dixon Place that David Schweitzer directed, who is also died the month after Morgan. So I want to bring them both in the room. And also yesterday when I was cooking,
that's good.
I was cooking and food kept falling onto the floor. And I've been told in certain indigenous cultures and in spiritual groups that when that happens is the spirits are around and you're supposed to leave it on the floor to feed them. So now I've got food all over my kitchen floor because I think Morgan is everywhere.
I told you she was there.
Yeah. She also loves to eat.
So, yeah, maybe two, three more, and then we are slowly out of time. But we have a reception afterwards. But anybody?
I just want you one thing, so that she really want to be singing on stage. That is when Nikki sang, and she want to be actor. Then I said, "How's that you are singing?" Right?
She was working on it. I have video of her.
But then I said, "It's okay." so then didn't happen. When Nikki, yes.
Yeah. She was taking voice lessons.
Yeah,
That's
right.
Hi, my name is Tita. I took a course with Morgan on dramaturgy, but what I really learned, I was on her email list and she invited me places. One time, climbed up a staircase somewhere below Canal Street into some warehouse thing, and there was a play going on. And I learned theater can pop up anywhere with her.
I've known her for 25, 30 years. I'm a theater artist, and I would just see her all the time. And it was her kindness, her openness. I always felt just this kinship with her. We would talk about what we'd seen. We would hug each other. And then when I wrote a play, I asked her to dramaturg it. And she sat down with me and we had this incredible conversation, and she gave me permission. She just continually kind of kept opening the door, like, yes, you can go in there. She would tell me all of the traditions. Anthropologically, she was just she had such a holistic understanding of theater around the world. And she gave me reference points that grounded me, touchstones that made me feel safe to go, okay, I'm following in other people's footsteps in a way that felt like I was part of a tradition. So I'm really grateful that this is happening, because there wasn't any sort of funeral or memorial for her. There was. Oh, there was? Oh, I didn't know about it. So when this came up, I was so grateful.
I am so grateful.
One or two more. Well, then I think Morgan liked when people got together and people talked and the ideas were exchanged. And I think in honoring Morgan and her spirit and her great contribution she made in a very stepped back way. She was never in the limelight. She was never looking for it. She worked with such great people, such great artists throughout her life. She made such a great contribution. But she was kind of very, very shy and timid, but still she was present. In Germany, there's a fairy tale called the make-believe giant. So when you're close to that giant, and the kids would go to him, it's like a normal person, but when you go away, the person gets bigger and bigger, and you see it. But if you get close again, and I think in a way we got close to her, but soon we will think of her, she was a grandmaster of the game, a giant, and such a gentle person, such a supportive person who understood that artists do need encouragement. but also serious engagement. And I think for all what she did, nothing that ever happens on the earth leaves the earth. It stays, from the dinosaur bones to the energy and the thoughts. So somehow she is with us. And I think she really inspires us to keep thinking, keep on dreaming, and to redo things, and to be kind, to be friendly, encouraging, and to do things like she did with Yoshiko and so many, many others. So we're going to open a little reception here. Thank you really all for coming. It meant a lot to us, and it's a big honor that we could help. Thank you.